on this one I'm going to show you how I do my scratch coat, my first coat of render. And prior to that, this wall has been power washed down, and of course on previous video it has been scud coated, which I also give my full ratios and mixes for that. So guys, scud coated this wall yesterday and just run around here getting my rules on and water filled up. I can actually work off this edge here as it is plumb. You can see how much it's been backfilled there, and this side wasn't so plumb, so I got a rule on. There's a bit of a dip in the middle there, so have a rule on it. And the only thing left to get a rule on is just finish off that rule here to that end, but I'll start scratch coating from the far end of that corner and bring it on in, so I'll be back shortly. So I'm going to go 3 to 1 for my scratch coat again, and have a drop of water in already, and I will add my sand first, and 2 sand, 1 cement, and then the last sand. I'll jump back to this here when it's mixed and ready for the wall. Scratch this wall here, and it was done yesterday, but you can see how dry it is, so you can give it a splash down. I fully recommend you do give it a good splash down, or a hose. That's me ready to start coating. So I'm sure a few of you have noticed that I'm actually coating from the right to left on this occasion, and that's just simply because I'm working off the rule, and that's my plumb and gauge, so I'll be working off that there from right to left, but usually I go left to right. It's a big massive debate whether you should render from the right hand if you're right-handed, or the left hand if you're the left hand side of the wall if you're right-handed or left-handed, but basically it doesn't matter one single bit. No matter how many times somebody tells you you're doing it the wrong way, do what's comfortable for you, and I find working left to right when rendering is extremely comfortable for me. And of course, in the many years I've been doing rendering and plastering, I have tried it both ways, and I know what's the best way for myself. So once you get comfortable, guys, I strongly suggest not that you have to not try other things, but you'll always learn something. But basically, once you get comfortable, stick to what works for you, and don't let it go past you. Probably really should have set up a rule along this edge as well, just to get me out, but I ran out as this bit of a length here, so I'll just swap them over when needs be. So again, now working from the rule, which is now on my left, out. Well, there's no actual rule on that side, but I'm working off the point that is plumb, and I'm using a 3 to 1 satin cement ratio coat, and there's waterproofer and mortar mix in this one. Do have videos on how to mix that on the channel also. And the reason I'm trying to keep everything so plumb on this is there will be some detailed work to come on following videos, following these videos, and scratch coating the wall might very well be the easiest part, but you gotta make sure your mix is right. As just like the scud coat, this coat has a specific ratio, and this is your foundation, guys, that you're building up upon. And that's the scratcher I use. I've been using that a long time. You can see it leaves a lovely key. Right, so the biggest notes here so far would be to wet down the wall as it's dry and it's very warm today, giving the wall good saturation and a chance to cure a wee bit slower. You don't want it drying out, pulling all the suction out of the render, and it'll cause it to crack and possibly fail or dry out in the dust. And again, then on that note, the ratios would be important. To select the ratios that suit yourself and what work for yourself. Obviously people disagree with my ratios, but that's okay, as they're not the ones standing over the work. I stand over my own work, so I know, like I said, what works for me, what has worked for me for a pretty long time now. So, you know, find out what's going to work for you. Doesn't necessarily be the same ratios or the same methods that I'm doing, but you have to agree that there is a lot of sense in wetting the wall down, and preparation is key to all rendering jobs and plastering jobs. Another debate on the channel is the way I scratch coat. I know a lot of people do it this way, but I scratch coat straight and versus wavy. That'll be a video on its own, and also the type of scratcher I use is another possible video and debate. Larger than this walls will actually need to be quick double coat. So it is. To bring it out, trying to straighten the wall up and down. I'll show you what I mean here. So I actually have this tack plumb, so one coat's never going to fill it. There's still a gap, so it needs two quick coats on it. So again, I have my rule from the top to the bottom plumb and straight. And the reason I'm doing that is, like I said, there's going to be detail going on, and I want the wall square along the front edge and stuff, so that it's a lot easier to do what I'm going to do, as I'm taking all the hard work out when I'm putting on my first coat, instead of trying to straighten it out in my next coat. Usually I wouldn't really straighten my scratch coat, as depends on the type of job. I would normally straighten my top coat, where in this instance I will be straightening both coats. I'll straighten my scratch coat out to help me straighten out my second top float coat, which I might get the refine a power float onto. If anybody's interested, let me know in the comments if you want to see that bad boy in action. Although I am doing two coats on the top part of this wall, I haven't really weakened down my mix for the second coat on the top, as I'm doing it the same day, so technically it's still really counting as the same coat. I'm not letting it fully dry out so that it bonds well together. And I will scratch this, but that's just in case it does dry, and I'll have a bit of a coat, as you can see. And that's basically the only reason I'm scratching that, is just in case it dries up a bit more, that my coat will still key and bond in well. So as you can see, I'm just checking, having a look to see where I need to build out more, and I will straighten it as I go here, but sometimes it's good to put your straight edge up and see where the heaviest areas are, and start on them first to allow them to actually dry up and not slide on you. If you try to keep building up in too quick a time on an area, it can slide down and give you a lot of headache. So it is better, the way I'm doing it is a better solution if you have a heavy coat of render to go, is do it in 2 goes. Allow the first bit to soak into the wall a bit and dry out a little bit, just so that the next coat won't slide. Gonna stick on the second scratch coat, just a double coat that's crusty enough nicely, so get cracked on, get it straightened up. So the tools I'm actually using that you see me dropping there is the Pointsman Hawk and a Refiner rendering trowel that I've been using this whole video. But yes, you can see just at where my legs are that I haven't put a coat over that area, and that's because a 5mm coat will be plenty on that. And remember, I do have a scud coat, so that will have took up at least 2-3mm of distance also. When you're scratch coating, you're going to want to go between about 5 to 10mm. You can probably go up to about 15-20, but like I'm doing here, once it's getting a bit thicker, I'm doing it in 2 goes. I'm not trying to do it all in 1 go, as like I said, you want it sliding, slumping, or just pulling off the wall. So that's why I'm building it up in stages. Your overall thickness of render will probably only be about 20mm as well, maybe 10mm in each coat. You probably could go as low as 5mm in each coat, 5-6mm. It's hard to really gauge it all the time because the scratcher itself, when you're pulling it along, it will go in a good few millimeters as well, giving good coat for the next coat. And again, certain jobs will stretch certain limitations either way, where you will have to go that bit higher, that bit thicker, possibly not recommended. And again, certain jobs will cause you to have to go quite thin because you just don't have the depth. So plastering rendering's not just as easy as looking up what's the depth and what's the coverage and so on. It's really is down, every job's different. Every job has its individual things that need done to make that job right. So that's why it's hard to put all the details into one mix, one video. But again, if you ever did want some more advice or tips or how I would go about a specific job that you're maybe undertaking, all you gotta do is ask me and I'll give you my experiences if I have done something similar, or a mate is experiences if I've done something similar as well, as I know a lot of plasterers as well. And like I said, all jobs are different, so somebody might have came across it before, if I haven't, but most likely I've came across quite a lot of backgrounds and materials and probably have experienced it. So you know, you can maybe learn off my experiences and skip out a few mistakes and get yourself a bit of a head start by just asking a couple of questions on it, and that's no problems. So rendering is not an easy job physically, as well as obviously having to do it all right. And you know, if you rush at it as well, you can make mistakes. So you know, you're going to want to do a lot of thinking first. Just take 10 minutes thinking, trying to set up what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Because obviously the more you use your brain, the less you'll hurt your back. So that's definitely the way to go about any rendering job that you're going to undertake. And again, you know, if you're just starting out, you will find that it does take a bit of muscle doing it. Even just mixing to yourself can be challenging. So you know, might want a mate to help you around the house, or you know, if you're working on a job, you might want a mate to come give you a hand out as well. So there's lots of things to sort of take into consideration, and not just the actual, if you're doing it right, but the physical aspect of it as well. And then you've got weather, where you can see it's quite hot here, so your stuff will dry out quicker, the wall will dry out quicker. Preparation is different in the summer than it is in the winter. So, you know, if it's raining and stuff, you're going to want to work away from the rain, work at a sheltered area, work around the sun possibly as well. You can see the sun's actually hitting the back of this wall from the shadow. It's not really hitting it full on, which is giving me a bit more time to get working on it. And you can see that I'm straightening up, like I said, and so this wall will be nice and level and straight for me, for my top coat and for any detail coats I'm going to do. Again, big shout out and respect to all the old school plasters out there who all laid down the ropes for us, younger generation. You know, they didn't have as many good cement mixers or drills or flexi trowels as we do now. So a lot of respect and shout out to them for that. So on my left I have the wall scratch coated, straightened out and scratch coated. I can go into more detail on a couple of other videos we have where it's for straightening walls before you float coat and before you float up and sponge finish. And right now I'm fitting on my rules. So this pillar, I don't know who built that, should have did a bit more level. But yeah, respect to the bricklayers who get pillars spot on every time. But you know the crack. Plasters can finish it and make it straight. You know, they'll get over it. That's the saying. But yeah, just tacking the rule on, putting my box level on here. I think it's from Rambo Tools or Faithful Tools. Putting it up plumb and tacking it on. And then when you want to plumb the other side, when you flip it round, you'll get that too, and you'll form a nice square edge. Although I know the other way this pillar is pretty straight, so once them bits set, I can just work off the edges of them, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure. If not, let me know. So when you're putting the nails in, don't drive them all the way home or you will struggle to get them back out. I'm going to go into a wee bit of detail with rules here because it's not something that's covered at all on my channel, and I will try and cover it more in the future. And you know, if there's any details about them or you want to know how I go about them, let me know and we'll get that organised and sorted out. So when you're working against rules, you're gonna want to have the rules fixed well so they're not going to come off when you trowel up against them here. And you know, you can do this with another person holding instead of putting nails in, but at the same time you want to go gentle on the rule. They're not forcing the nails out and making them come off. And the way I work it is I fill the rule out and then strike up here, as you can see, to get it. You're working off the rule line, so you should be plumb. I actually find coating reveals on this side when I'm working left to right a lot more comfortable than when I'm working hooking into my body. But that's just me. You can pull your derby or your straight edge across as well, but it's not that wide, so when I'm pulling my big massive refiner steel trowel across it, I'm finding getting it nice and straight anyway. Plus the rule is there as a guide, so again, no problems. But yeah, I find doing reveals from this angle that wee bit more trickier, just feels a wee bit less comfortable. but you know, it's all the same really. Same rules apply with the nails and with the coating. Just try not to put too much pressure on. And again, a nice key coat for the next hit. So taking the rules off when the stuff's still wet. A lovely wee trick tip here for you. Just cut it back to the back of the rule. Sometimes you'll find this is enough that it actually releases the nails and all, and other times it doesn't. You still have to pull the nails out, but that will release the surface tension, so when you do pull the rule off, it won't pull off big lumps of render, making you have a repair to do. But when you're pulling it out, try to lean on the rule as you pull the nail. You don't want to pull it, you want to sort of take it all off in one go, if that makes sense, like so. Hopefully you've understood what I was talking about there. If not, I'll try and dive into more detail in a future video. But you can see how neat that corner is, and I know it's actually plumb the other way, so I can just work off that edge and I'll be happy with my nice neat corners. So again, constantly wetting the walls here because it is so warm. Such a lovely day to be working outside, to be honest. Couldn't have picked better weather. But yeah, gotta keep the wall hydrated. You don't want it soaking in. And again, this is going to take 2 coats along this edge. I'm not sure if you've watched the previous video, but I stated in it that the wall, you know, it does lean back a bit, and one of the reasons the scud coated was I'm trying to further strengthen this wall, as a scud coat will give you tremendous strength on a weak wall. This wall was not particularly weak anyway, but I knew it was off the plumb. It was almost like they built it in 2 goes, and it just sort of fell back. I think you're only meant to go like 3 block high a day, maybe 4 on a really good day. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the rules when you're building block, is if you go too high, it will potentially lean or, you know, collapse. So you can see again I'm working left to right, and the big argument of this really is that they say that you should work into your renders, but if you watch the way I was coating, I will coat up and hook into the stuff, into my body, not coming up and out of my body, stretching away from my body. I'm coming up and coming in, and that gives me my weight behind the trowel as well, which I find a lot more comfortable. If you look what I'm doing, striking the trowel up, coming in, working into my render, the exact same thing, you know, no difference. The most important thing is that you don't trap air behind your render. If you see bubbles, just cut them out, nip a bit more stuff in. It's very important. If there's air bubbles in behind, it'll be a hollow, and you don't want any trapped air in behind, because where air is and water will follow. So basically, again, just do what you find most comfortable. Like I'm working out of the ball here, but if you've noticed, I would normally work with boards, but if you listen in the background, you hear the mixer going, and what I'm doing is I'm just keeping a mix in the mixer while I use a full barrel mix, and that allows me to keep my stuff nice and fresh and creamy. So I'm taking a wee bit of muscle out, don't have to keep mixing up my barrel as it dries, or just putting on tighter stuff where it's nice fresh gear going on into the barrel and onto the wall straight away. And you can see the bit of a routine I've got going then, as well as when I empty a barrel, I pour out a barrel and I throw another mix in. I constantly, when I'm mixing, I fill up my buckets again, so there's always a mix ready to go in. It's like a bit of a sequence. When you're working on your own, you will find wee ways to speed things up, make things handier. The plastering game and the rendering game is hard enough as it is, so if you can make any wee adjustments in your game to make things handier and easier, do. likewise, when I'm coating, most times I actually keep my hawk underneath my trowel, and that catches anything that falls, which saves you having to mix more. You might waste a barrel by dropping stuff the whole day long, and you might then it also saves you time on having to clean up. So if you can keep your hawk underneath, not doing it actually just right now, but if you can keep your hawk underneath your trowel when you're coating, you'll find much better. Less mess on the floor, less cleaning up, which means home time's quicker. So I'm gonna wrap up the voiceover for now and let you watch me work away on this. If you're here just enjoying watching somebody work and put on some sand and cement render, then you'll enjoy the end of this video without my voiceover and seeing me work. And again, if you haven't subscribed, do hit the subscribe button, and hopefully you want to see the rest of this wall progressing, as I think you will be very interested in it. So definitely make sure you're keeping an eye open for the latest videos.
Bye.